Right then, lads. You know what it, don't you? You know what we're going to talk about tonight, don't
We've
you?
we've we've called this emergency meeting for this emergency podcast.
Emergency
Handballs.
podcast to talk about handballs and VAR. Everyone's
Very amateur
favourite.
referee.
Shall we get the good out of the way first and just skip over some of the results over the weekend?
Yeah.
And by the good, I mean us absolutely pulling a fast one on Saturday and setting a record for winning a game after the full-time whistle had already gone.
Wait a second. Unlucky!
we don't want to spend too much on these games, so we'll just quickly bounce over them. But A, were we better than we were against Crystal Palace?
No.
No, not really. No. Shit.
B,
Next.
are we arsed?
No.
No, we won.
Yeah, 3 points.
Yeah. C, is winning gonna paper over some cracks to the fact that we might not sign anyone now?
Yes. Yeah, probably will. You know how that Ollie will somehow have taken some positives from that performance, even though it was glaringly obvious that we need squad depth. Because when you're not getting a goal and you're performing that badly, and you look to the bench, and you've got Dan James and who else? I don't even know.
Pereira.
Yeah, well, he's fucked off anyway. He's gone to Lazio.
Yeah, true.
Not official yet, but thank Christ, it looks like it's going to happen. So thank God for that. Smalling next. Jones looks like he's going to end up staying until his contract runs out because no one wants to pay his wages. Rojo, I don't even know where he is, but apparently he's not left yet. So I think that we're in the unfortunate position where we're only going to have a load of players leave when their contracts expire because we don't have any club in the world that will pay those ridiculous wages that we've somehow given to them. So anyway, transfers are another story, I think.
We'll dive into transfers another day. I agree with you. I think we've covered over some cracks. I think the Glazers were probably sat there thinking, class, we've got 3 points. We don't need to spend. Happy days.
Yeah.
Moving on with the Toffees not here at the moment, but Everton, second in the table, 3 wins out of 3.
They got lucky.
They look good.
I
think they look good, mate.
Yeah, I think they look good.
They did look good, but I think that handball that could have been given as a penalty. Maybe.
Well, we'll get on to that in a bit because it was absolutely never a fucking penalty. But I'm waiting for Josh to be here so we can hear me say that.
I'm just enjoying that we're having a better week than City, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go through them game by game. West Brom, Chelsea. Frank Lampard, the saviour, almost bottling it.
Game that was. Couldn't believe it, 3-0. I was like, what is happening here?
Oh, I can believe it was 3-0 because I put money on Chelsea, and whenever I put fucking money on anyone, they have an absolute fucking defensive calamity, and everything just falls apart. If I wouldn't have put money on Chelsea, they would have won 5-0. But now, what's happened is word's gone through to West Brom. Hey lads, Collins has put a tenner on Chelsea tonight, so you know the drill. Let's go. Fucking time.
They were good, weren't they, West Brom? I didn't think they had it in them, to be honest. Not seen that performance coming after the start to the season so far, but there you go. Like they must have proper G'd himself up to play a big team. And Thiago Silva was fucking terrible. So.
Thiago Silva is... Gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it still shows their defensive frailties, which they haven't really sorted out from last year. Right. I mean, how many goals did they concede last year? And they've continued in that same vein at the start of this season. I mean, it might change, but it doesn't look like they've sorted any of that to me. Even with bringing in Silva.
At what point did anyone think it was a good idea bringing in a 36-year-old centre-back that has played for the last however long, 6-7 years, in the French Farmers League without any real competition? Who'd have thought that was going to work out well?
I did.
Right.
But we again. I'm happy to be wrong. He did look slow. He looked really bad. I was about to say we haven't seen a worse performance of Thiago Silva since David Glastonbury, but we'll move on.
He should be going straight to MLS, not the Premier League, to retire.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Burnley, Southampton. Southampton needed a badly needed 3 points. They got it.
Shit game.
Yeah.
It was a shit game, but they needed that. They needed that shit game. They just needed to grind out a result.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Burnley I think they've got a load of injuries at the minute. I think the two centre backs aren't playing. You know, Ben Mee and what's his name, Tarkowski, whatever it is. Yeah. You know, and I think they've got a few injuries as well to a couple of midfielders and forwards. So I think they'll still struggle. I think Burnley until they start getting them back.
They said about Tarkowski, and they were saying on Talksport that before he was leaving Brentford for Burnley, he was injured and didn't play for a few games, and now he's being linked away again, and he's now injured again. It's an interesting.
Burnley are having a mini crisis at the moment, aren't they? They've lost all 3 of their opening games. Is it 3?
Yeah, they don't look as good as they finished the season last year.
They're about to be taken over, though, aren't they?
Apparently so, yeah. Apparently they're being taken over, yeah.
There's an American company for Burnley, because they're having a bit of a meltdown, the fans, because obviously Burnley's always been the local club, hasn't it? Like run by the fans for the fans and all the rest of it, and now they got to
like we were before the Glazers came in. We were shareholders, weren't we?
Yeah.
Next game, Collins, you can give me 20 quid now if you want, or we can just let this season ride out. It'd be painful for you. But Leeds annihilated Sheffield United.
No, I've still got faith. I
think annihilated.
It was a really good game. It was a very good game. I think the Leeds keeper was fucking fantastic. He made some really good saves.
They were both class.
Yeah. I just think out the football they're playing, Leeds do look the better team, and they needed that result more than anyone. They needed a shutout. Like, even though they only scored 1, they needed a shutout.
Well, this is the thing with Sheffield United. They're just not goal scorers, are they? Like, if they're going to win a game, they're going to hit on the break and to get like a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something like that. And they're very good themselves defensively, Sheffield United. But you do wonder 2 things. One, is it a second season syndrome kind of deal? And with Leeds, I mean, I hope they do take confidence from that clean sheet, because I think the only reason they kept the clean sheet was because it was Sheffield United. I think the next game, I don't know who they've got next, but if they've got anyone who's any good going
Leeds, they've got City.
Well,
Sheffield.
Well, it's interesting you say about Sheffield. Like, they haven't scored a goal in 3 games now.
Yeah,
that's worrying signs.
That's a huge problem. Yeah, I do feel like Chris Wilder will turn it around, but that's a massive fucking worry. Spurs, Newcastle.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Honestly, Newcastle have probably got the luckiest points that anyone has ever earned in the Premier League since Manchester United the day before against Brighton. Jesus Christ! I watched that game, and honestly, Spurs were going after the hit the woodwork record that Brighton set the day before. They just couldn't finish the chances with Spurs, and I was messaging one of my mates from work, and I was saying, look, they need to take these chances, because otherwise it's going to be Brighton United Mark II, and that's exactly what it was. Apart from Newcastle didn't get the win, but they got a point that they probably one of the least deserving points I've ever seen in football. It was mental, and that well, going to VAR and handballs in a minute, but
didn't
they win last year? Didn't they win last year, Newcastle at Tottenham?
Yeah, I think they did.
I mean, they've just almost done it again, but they've just nicked a point, which could be quite a good point, come the end of the season, or
It was definitely 2 points lost for Spurs rather than 1 point gained.
Like
Carl Darlow was fucking outstanding. I don't know how many saves he made in the end, but he was brilliant. And then the two more shocking results of the weekend. Leicester 5, Manchester City 2.
Was it shocking though?
To fix that, they'll buy £70 million worth of defensive liability once again.
Yeah, Lee, you make a good point. Is it that much of a shock? I mean, Leicester have looked really good. City, they looked, like I said, you were raving about them last game. I didn't think they were that great against Wolves. They just did the job. But they looked fucking dog shit yesterday. They looked awful.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to the penalties aspect, They said earlier during the Arsenal-Liverpool game that in the 26 games, I think, this season, so far, there's been 20 penalties. And like 99 goals, 20 of them are penalties. Now, that is crazy. But to give 3 in one game, do you think that with the fans in the stadium, 3 penalties will have been given?
Yeah, because they were obvious. They were obvious penalties.
Yeah, but the pressure, I don't think would have got to him to at least not give one of them. Maybe just sort of shrug it off.
Are you talking about the defending or the referee in there?
Both, a bit of both, really. I think the referee.
I know what you're saying.
And to give 3 penalties at the Etihad like that, it is a big thing. And I mean, do you know what? Kind of good on the referees, because in a world of controversy around refereeing decisions, those 3 were penalties, and they weren't like, they had the bollocks to give all 3 as penalties, which they needed to do. Where in a packed stadium with the fans down your throat, like, they might not have given one of them. So
there's no atmosphere at the Etihad, mate. Don't worry about
that. Yeah. I think that I thought City started well when Mahrez scored that absolute screamer, banged it top left bin. I thought, here we go. Like, Leicester are going in for a rough ride here, and they kept the ball well. But then it was just the breakaways. Like, they just couldn't handle them on the break. And I think Nathan Ake looks like a decent centre back for him, but he's not the commanding, no nonsense centre back, which apparently this Ruben Dias is.
I think Ake's better for the left back position, isn't he? I think he's going to nail that down.
I think they could have a plank of wood at left back, and it'd be better than having Mendy.
He's fucking awful. Like, he's absolutely. You said it last season when they played Chelsea. He's stealing a living. He is absolutely stealing a living. He is poor. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I actually thought over the course of the 90 minutes, City were the better team, but Leicester are just clinical, and they won the penalties. It's very intelligent play going forward to win those penalties. People don't appreciate this about why clubs win more penalties than others, and we were talking a bit about it last season with United, and why United win so many penalties. But when you're that clever and you're that intricate with the ball in and around the areas, and you're getting goal side of the defenders and stuff, they're not stupid. There was a lot of intelligence, I thought, that Leicester showed yesterday. A lot of intelligence, and you've got to show a bit of intelligence sometimes to get the results that you want. Penalty is just as good a way to score as smashing in a 30-yarder like Maddison did. You know what I mean?
Oh, great finish that.
Yeah, top class. Top class.
Anything to add, Dale?
No.
I appreciate your honesty.
I think you've just said it all there, lads. I mean,
yeah. And then the final result from Sunday: West Ham 4, Wolves 0.
DB the judge, 2 Wolves. Oh, in the fantasy team. Oh, clean sheet. Here we go. How wrong was I? How wrong was I?
This weekend has been an absolute nightmare for fantasy football. It's been fucking horrific.
What do you think I feel?
Fuck off, you're on more points than I am.
I played my free hit.
Well, that is just unfortunate.
And do you know what I did with my free hit?
Put Vardy on the bench.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did. I put Vardy on the bench, and I put a Wolves defender in.
Oh dear.
Why?
Oh dear. Did you watch the highlights? Did you see how much I did, or did you watch a game?
I've not seen any of it, to be honest.
I watched a bit of Match of Day too, and Wolves didn't really provide anything by the looks of things. It's similar to the City game where you said City were the better team. They had the majority of the possession. They didn't create shit.
All right, boys.
That was like he's just made his entrance in the Royal Rumble. His fucking theme music's playing.
Oh God, it's Jay Murphy.
I think it is, yeah. Yeah, no, Wolves were just very bang average. And West Ham, fair play to them, they got 3 points. Fulham Villa 3-0. Fulham are down. That's all we need to say again, is it?
terrible.
They look awful. They looked awful.
You hear what Gabby Bonlahor tweeted out?
Yeah.
No.
That was pretty funny, that. You got all that stick last week for saying that Jack Grealish reminds him of Iniesta, didn't he? And he had to clarify his comments, and then he tweeted out tonight, he was like, Grealish looks like Iniesta out
there. Good lad. Love that. Stand by your word.
Apparently he's playing class, though.
And then we're currently in the middle of the Arsenal-Liverpool game. We're currently 2-1 to Liverpool. This ain't changing, is it?
Nah.
Oh, big suck from Arteta about to happen now.
What, he's taking David Luiz off and putting Gabriel on like he should have started.
I can't believe Gabriel's not started. What's going on there?
Don't know, or he's only in the fantasy as well.
Yeah.
He got man of the match in his first 2 games. Why is he not playing?
Honestly, it's one of the most mental decisions I've seen this season since Ollie started without Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Greenwood on United's right-hand side. It doesn't make any sense. What does he think is going to happen? That David Luiz is going to turn into like fucking prime
Maldini?
Yeah, it just makes sense.
It's the most ridiculous decision I've seen since Sunday afternoon, 3:30. Andy Carroll jumping up for a header and winning a penalty.
Nice segue.
Right, didn't you?
Where do we fucking begin with this? So it must have felt difficult for Steve Bruce to come out and be like, yeah, fine, we got a point. He must have been so embarrassed to come out and have to say, we got a point, but we didn't deserve it, basically. That's basically what he said without saying it. In what world does the ruling work in terms of when players jump in the air? Because there is no real natural position for your arms. Your arms are used to counterbalance your fucking centre of gravity when you're in the air. There is no natural position for your arms to be in, especially when the ball's coming from behind you. How do you know it's coming? It obviously can't be deliberate. But the ruling is, if it hits any part of your arm in the box, no matter whether it's intentional or not, it's a penalty. So the thing is, that clears it up for me. Like, does it not? If it hits any part of your arm in the box, it's a penalty. No matter what happens, surely it'll level itself out over the course of the season. It's just because there's been so many of them at the start of this season that it seems a little bit unfair. Will it not? I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
It won't balance it out for me because of, and we'll come to this point later, with the Kai Havertz one for Chelsea, because they're saying that wasn't handball and they can't stop it because it didn't directly lead to a goal. Well, no, it did, because if he controlled it with his stomach, which he did, and it bounced off his arm, if his arm wasn't there, he's probably going out for a goal kick. But he's controlled it and laid it off, and then they scored from it. So that directly leads to a goal. But this rule, honestly, Jamie Carragher said it great, it's killing football. Yeah, it's absolutely killing football. It's ridiculous. Sam Matterface was saying it on TalkSport. It's like the Eric Dyer one. Oh, he went off. It was a brilliant listen. The Eric Dyer one, he felt like it probably would have been given last season because the ruling that they were giving was arm is above the shoulder. Well, of course it's going to be, because you're not jumping up like a penguin. Dale, you probably know this better than anyone playing basketball. You have to use your arms to jump.
Yeah.
Like, what are you meant to do? It's ridiculous. And this weekend, just like you said, this weekend does seem to be very excessive. There's been a lot of them this weekend. And maybe you're right, maybe it will counterbalance throughout the season. But no.
I'm just disgusted is what I am. Like, and that's the best word to describe how I'm feeling. I was disgusted with the Lindelof one. Josh, I'm sure you'd be big enough to admit that the Ward one was contentious. I mean, Magalhaes, that wasn't a penalty, but the fact that one wasn't given when all of these other ones just shows how inconsistent.
That's my problem with it.
That Eric Dyer, I watched the Eric Dyer one, and I was just, it's embarrassing. It's absolutely fucking embarrassing. And I'm not having fans turn around and say, well, you know, if Spurs would have buried the chances, then they wouldn't have been in that position. No, if a fucking penalty wouldn't have fucking been given for the most stupid fucking handball I've ever seen in my life. Spurs win the game. You've cost them 2 points. You fucking cost them 2 points. And it's just nothing but fucking incompetence. It's nothing but fucking incompetence. The left hand doesn't know what the fucking right's doing. VAR is just shite. The technology itself, Danny, as I'm sure you'd like to say, is spot on, perfect. The technology's there. We can see it works. But you've just got fucking idiots in Stotley, fucking idiots in EFA, in UEFA, in FIFA, all the way through, just fucking rotten to the core, just using it so poorly, and it's just ruining everything. We can't even celebrate a goal. Because 10 seconds later you sat back down again because someone brushed it with a pinky finger and it's been fucking put out for something or another, or someone's offside by a toe. It's just ridiculous like that. It's just no entertainment in watching football. It's just ruining it for me. Sorry to rant.
You said what a lot of us are thinking, mate. Like I said, we've argued a lot the last couple of days about, and even on the last podcast, about VAR and its application versus like what is the actual problem. They were saying it on, I think it was TalkSport. I was listening to it on the way home yesterday, and they were saying how there just seems to be not a conspiracy, but maybe a bias towards giving extra penalties to make up for the goals that VAR are taking away. You know, like I said, with the a toe being offside, like with handballs, and it just seems to me that this increase in penalty, let's be honest, goals generate clicks, clicks generate money. Yeah. Like, people don't tune into a 0-0. They want to tune into a 4-3. They want to see City get 3 penalties against them. That controversy gets people like clicking.
There hasn't been a 0-0 yet at all.
And I find that baffling. That is mental, that. And I can't see it coming for a while, because if they're giving penalties away for what they got given this weekend, like, we're not going to see a 0-0 for ages. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to see 0-0s. No one wants to watch a fucking 0-0. But I don't want to see penalties given when a defender jumps up and has it hit behind his back.
You'd rather an organic 0-0 than a manufactured 2-3.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the second one it doesn't feel right. When you, like Newcastle, for example, Steve Bruce must have been feeling like a right knobhead, having to stand there and say, yeah, we didn't deserve it. And it's the same with one thing I do want to clear up is Manchester United's winner doesn't count in any of this, because it was a handball, and it happened before the final whistle. The fact the final whistle blew doesn't mean anything. Like, apparently the rules of VAR is that if there's a check after the whistle's gone on, then you go and do the check. It doesn't affect anything. So I don't think that the Man United one is a contentious one. We were just lucky as fuck that Maguire headed it and Mopé had his arm up in the air and it hit his arm.
And he was looking at it as well.
Yeah, so I don't think that's a contentious one. The rest were, though.
No.
Like the one against Palace Everton. I think that was a little bit contentious, and I think
the backlash online isn't against us, though. For the first time ever, the backlash against like the penalties and stuff, I don't think there's many people disagreeing with actually what happened in that Brighton game. I think a lot of people have accepted the fact that it's in black and white. You can read it in the rules of the game that referee can blow the full-time whistle, but if there's a contentious decision that VAR has to return to, they can do that and restart the game. And people have read that and seen it and been like, yeah, all right, you know what, fair enough. They'll contend it's a penalty because they say, oh, he was a yard away from him. Well, no, Maupay is literally looking at it as his arm's up there.
Yeah.
Like, if he's looking at it, put your arm down.
The frustration for me is that you see a situation like that where VAR's used perfectly to right a wrong. Mm-hmm. Why is that not happening all the way through? Because common sense is fucking applied. Common sense is applied there as well, just like we've applied common sense to it. He's handballed it on purpose. It's panic modes. You're defending after you've just scored an equaliser. You've put the fucking ball up. Listen, Mopé's probably done what 9 out of 10 of us would have done, right? When you're in a desperate situation like that, trying to defend. There's some of the other decisions. I mean, in that same game, there was an offside that went through, and I think it was Rashford bagged it, and it was so blatantly offside, like Filippo Inzaghi style offside, where he's about fucking mile over there, no defenders near him. and the linesman doesn't flag, and you let the whole thing go through, and then let it go to VAR, and it takes a minute and a half to clear up what the linesman could have just done that to clear up. It's just lazy.
Yeah.
It's making the officials lazy. It's making them incompetent. Why are you relying? If you have to rely on a machine to do your job, fuck off. We don't need you.
We don't need linesmen at this point. Like, we genuinely don't need linesmen.
Sean Massey came under a lot of fire after our game because she was looking right at the handball and didn't see it, didn't put a flag up, and then also failed to put a flag up for Marcus Rashford's
goal,
offside and goal. And it's just it's getting to the point where it's too hard to make it like a level playing field. It's too hard to be consistent enough to make it worth doing. Because the problem is, you see, like you were saying, the Havertz handball wasn't given, which I just don't see how, for the ones that were given, how that one wasn't. And at the same time, it does almost feel like, well, we've given a bit too many this weekend. We can't come under more fire and give another one. And that feeling sort of transpires across the whole lot. We even going back to the retaking of the penalty against Manchester United, Crystal Palace. Again, that's the same sort of situation where, one, I don't know why they were allowed to change penalty taker, but two, there have been loads of other penalties that weren't checked where the goalkeeper's foot has come off the line. And I think it would be a lot easier for people to take if the consistency was there. But it's too hard to get that consistency right because there's so many different variables that you need to align that you just can't do it. So what's the solution? What do you do? What do you do with it? They're obviously not going to get rid of it. They can't get rid of it halfway through a season now because otherwise it's unfair on the people that have played with that.
Oh, we're never getting rid of VAR. No chance.
No, there's too much invested in it now. I mean, how do you feel from an Everton perspective, Josh? Because you've been indirectly or directly rather involved with one of the fucking decisions. And it was Ward that gave away the penalty.
Yeah.
For the handball.
I agree with the fans online that it was a harsh decision to give. It was the wrong decision. From an Everton point of view, obviously I'm ecstatic that we won, but I think we were the better side. I don't think it should have been based off a penalty. The header from Luca Dean is obviously it's a downwards header to a natural hand position, which is why it shouldn't be given, because what is he supposed to do with his hands? Is he supposed to do like the old Branislav Ivanovic thing and put them behind his back? Do you remember when he used to defend like that and people used to mock him for it? But he probably had the right idea, really, by doing that, because you wouldn't have ever seen these sort of penalties given away if all defenders wrap their hands behind the back.
Did you catch Match of Day 2 last night?
No, I didn't know.
They were highlight. So just to cut you off there, they were highlighting the Spurs game, and Mourinho has quite clearly drilled that into his players this week, because every time someone was closing the ball, they were all running with their hands behind the back. And it begs the question there as a defender, if your hands are behind your back, you've lost half your mobility straight away. Like, you can't turn as quick when you're limiting your hands. So you're automatically putting the advantage in the attacker. But yeah, it was just interesting to see that they'd seen it in that game a fair few times, that after Saturday, they'd already clocked on that this is what we need to do now. All right, sorry, carry on.
The Tottenham one's the worst one. Obviously, we all agree on that. He's got his back turned to it. He doesn't have a clue that it's happening. It's just massively unfair. I do disagree with you, Colin, slightly, where you say that it's you disagree with the fans that say, well, if Tottenham are taking their chances, then they shouldn't be in that sort of position. I think Spurs were poor not to have taken the chances. They should have been 4 or 5 up before half time. So they did bring it on themselves a little bit, because we actually joked about it in a separate chat with Ian, who's obviously a Newcastle fan. And I said, I can't see Newcastle getting a goal here at all. And I put the mockers on it, didn't I? And jinxed it. And then they went and got that penalty about 5 minutes later. That's the worst one out of all of them. Ours is obviously quite bad. I disagree that it was a penalty from an Everton perspective and from a footballing perspective. They're bad decisions. It needs to change the rules. but it's not going to this season. I don't think it's going to have to be.
No.
How are you feeling? Because obviously you weren't with us last week, Dale, because you just like to fuck off to the lakes on days that we're recording the podcast. So you didn't get your say on VAR last week, mate. But go on, give us, because I'm sure you've got a fucking awful lot to say. You have in the chat anyway.
It's like a bull in a china shop, innit? It's a fucking disaster. Honestly, it's just a fucking.
Can we get a T-shirt with
disaster.
one-liners on it?
I mean, I don't know. Well, I say that the handball decisions. That's probably where that's where the worst of it is. But it seems like they've gone from the offside. There was a lot of decisions last year regarding offsides, which seems to have got brought up. But he seems to move now to the penalties this season. But in regards to the offside, I'm fine with that. Goal line technology, fine with that. I mean, even the retake of the penalties for the keeper coming off the line. Surely the keeper is told this information at the start of the season. They know VAR's there to check it. I think that's just been incompetence of the keeper's sake. But the handballs, I think Lee hit the nail on the head with there's no consistency. And even going back to a previous podcast, I think he mentioned about just actually having some sort of mics on the refs. The people at Stanley Park, just get a bit of communication. Let's just hear what the refs are going through. What they're looking for. Just get a bit of an idea why they're giving these sort of decisions. Because we're just we don't know nothing. There's no point getting ahead of referee on Sky Sports on a Monday saying, "Oh, I think he's made this call because of this." It's not good enough.
It's the arrogance of it.
Yeah, we need. You have it in rugby league, union. You hear the refs through the match officials, and right, we think that take it back a frame or two, look at this, that, and the other. Why can't we just have a bit of that? I mean, it might take a bit of time, but if it gets the decision right at the end of the day, I'm all for it. But
that's what it is. It is the sheer arrogance of it. They 100% are not going to do that because they don't think that we need to know what they're saying. No, we do. We do need to know what you're saying because you're getting everything wrong. So we need to know what you're going on about and what you're seeing that we're not seeing, because the fans at home who are watching everything are seeing everything exactly the way it should be seen.
What I found really interesting was when I was watching, I can't remember what game I was watching this weekend, but they were saying, the commentators, that they were hearing the conversation from Stockley Park, but only from that side. So they could hear what the VAR official was saying to the referee, but couldn't hear what the referee was replying. What's the fucking point? Like, what if they're hearing that? You're hearing a one-sided conversation. That I'm sure you can plug the gaps, and I'm sure they can, because it's not hard when you're talking about decisions. But if they're hearing it, why are we not? Like, why are we not? Why we've got all these, like, almost all stadiums, Old Trafford probably being the exception at the moment, have got big television monitors. Why are we not seeing it like with rugby, where you see it get dragged frame by frame? You have it with this full of stadium announcers and like people that've got speakers. We need to be in the know. We need to be in the know because everyone's clueless. And then it takes the FA coming out of the game after the Spurs game to come out and make a statement to tell us why that penalty's been given. Well, no, tell us instantly why it's been given. Don't wait an hour.
They're too literal with the rule about it hitting any part of the arm from the sleeve down.
That's the biggest problem. The biggest problem. We asked for consistency, and now we've got too much consistency that we're not allowed human error, and that is the biggest problem.
Yeah. I think they need to sit down. I know we're at the start of the season. They need to sit down at the end of the season and just say, this has been wrong all year. Let's readdress it and not take it so literally and allow the referees to use their own brains rather than the rule book.
We talked about the problems. We've talked about how shit it is. We've talked about how shit its application is. What's the solution? Like, how do you solve the problem?
I was going to say that, but I feel like the solution is so obvious. It's just allow human intervention. Like, don't have the rule book be so black and white. Everything's circumstantial. Human life is circumstantial. Everyone has an opinion, and we're not letting these referees have that opinion. Like with the handballs, yeah, some of them were handballs and some of them weren't. According to the rule book, they all were. But let the referees decide. And if you want to consult VAR, because they're the ones telling to look back, and they want to have a conversation and say, do you think and I think that this is a penalty? Yes, all right, it's a pen. But we need to hear that conversation, and we need to know that it isn't a little transcript out of a textbook that has made that decision. We need to know that the human referee has made that decision. And that, to me, that is the simplest way to change, to fix what the problems are. We've had so many rule changes over the last few years that I don't think anyone actually knows what the handball rule is properly anymore. And it's so weird. Just make it. It fucks me off so much.
Hand means hand. That is what it is. Like, if you could take the literal meaning of hand to ball, that is what they're doing. That's the problem. They're not taking into account sort of how that ball got to the hand. You know, Did it deflect off somebody's back? You know, did somebody have their back turned to it? Did it, like, you shouldn't benefit from not knowing where the ball's coming from, being in a natural position. Like, I'm going to go back to that Tottenham one. That was just...
That is the worst one.
The referee should have looked at that and sort of overruled what say he was told via, you know, the people that watch the video or people that decide, oh, well, the rule book says this, so you have to give it. Well, no, I'm the referee here. I've got the authority and I'm going to use it to make the decision that is not a handball. He had his back to it. He didn't know about it. That's the authority lies with people looking on the video screens now, doesn't it?
It makes me wonder whether the referees are happy making these decisions. I mean, you're not telling me that these referees are happy. Them refs probably know that in the spirit of the game and how football should be played, that I think it's been 6 handball penalties. Lee said it was 20 in like 26 games, and 6 of them have been for handball. They must know that they are not penalties.
Yeah, I think they do.
Like the majority of them. And I think it was on TalkSport, I think it was Sam Matterface again saying that they're marked, they're judged after every game for giving decisions and not giving decisions. So they're now threatening about their jobs for giving decisions that are well out of their control. And I don't know, Dale, if you were a ref, would you be happy giving them penalties? Like, genuinely?
Well, the thing is, what I've liked so far is the refs have more opportunities to have a second look, which they rarely did last season. I think we screamed about it that, you know, there's a monitor at the side of this fucking pitch that they can go over to and have a second look at it.
It was scared,
so in that and in that respect, I've seen more of that this season already than the majority of last season. So I'm all for that. But again, it's even with the second look, without hearing them, we have no idea what principles are applying to these. You know what they're looking at, what part of the pitching handbook they're referring to when they say, "Oh, this is handball," or is it ball to hand? I mean, without, like I say, going back to without actually having a mic and listening to these sort of conversations, we're just in the in the know-how.
It's hard to judge when you don't know what's being said.
Yeah.
You're in the dark about.
Yeah. And then you start making your own assumptions. You start making your own assumptions, and then you start listening to the pundits, and then all of a sudden everyone starts forming this opinion, which then leaks to Twitter, and then all of a sudden, like the football in social world, it just becomes chaos again.
I called TalkSport about this today, and I was on Drive with Adrian and Darren. And I pretty much said everything that. Yeah, no, I'm one of them, mate. I can't.
You're regular.
Yeah, I know.
He really is.
Like another stamp on my loyalty card. I'm one of those though where I'm a big fan of TalkSport, and I'm a big fan of a lot of shows on there. But I'm one of these people where I can't just sit quiet if I hear an opinion I don't agree with. Like, if there's something that I feel passionately about, like, I have to pick up the phone and say my piece. You lads know how mouthy I am. Like, I just don't shut up once I get a cob on about something. But I called them today, and I pretty much said everything that we've been saying about it. American football, video umpire, spot on. You've got sports like cricket, they use it very well. You've got sports like tennis, where they've got a challenge system, they use it brilliantly. Rugby league, like every single sport has their own version of it now, pretty much. And football gets hold of it, and it just turns into an utter shit show. And there's just no clarity to the players, there's no clarity to managers, there's no clarity to fans. And I hate to say it, yeah, not to sound all righteous from me fucking soapbox and stuff, you're all playing this sport for us. We are the consumers. We're the ones that are paying your wages, so to speak, yeah, and giving you the platforms that you've got. Why are we getting absolutely zero insight and zero communication into what's happening? And Darren even said it himself, like in response to me, and I couldn't say anything back because he cut me off, the bastards. But he even said in response to me, do you think it'd be a good idea then if the fans at home could hear what's happening between the ref and Stockley Park? Yes. Let us hear what's going on. Let us hear what's going on. You can hear it in rugby. You can hear it in every single other sport where you've got some sort of video assistant technology, referee, umpire, whatever you want to call it. All the fans know exactly what's going on, and nothing's left to interpretation. We are constantly left to interpret what's going on all the time. And if you did that, you wouldn't have to have UEFA and FIFA and the FA and the relevant body come out after a game and go, this was given because of this and this and this. Let us hear it for ourselves. Let us hear it.
Yeah. Comes back to the arrogance point again, though, doesn't it? Football has to be different. They have to have their own rules. Don't learn from the rest of the sporting world where they've had it for years and they've got it nailed on and nobody raises any issues with it. And it's not controversial at all. It's spot on. But football has to be different because football is the number one sport in the country and it brings in the most money.
I mean, let's be honest, boys. There was always going to be teething problems, and we knew this 2 years ago when it came in the World Cup. But this is beyond a joke now.
Mate,
like I said, this is what they were saying on TalkSport. They were talking about when Dale said about the referees going to the monitor. That was a FIFA encouraged thing. Last season, it was David Ellery in charge of VAR. And he has been stripped of them powers by FIFA and by IFAB. Like, they don't want him in charge of it anymore because he was ruining the point of VAR, telling them not to go to the monitor. Like I said, I feel like we've seen referees go to the monitor more in these 3 game weeks than we did in the whole of last season. And that is really encouraging. But then the problem lines with they're going to the monitor and not making, rephrase that, they are making the right decisions by the laws of the game, but the laws of the game don't suit 22 humans playing a football game. And that's the biggest problem. It's making the referees look stupid. And it's not their fault. Like, it's not the ref's fault. And it's not VAR's fault. It's his fucking rule book that's been made by David Ellery. He's made over 200 changes to the game in 4 years.
Picture the
200 changes. It was 5 or 6 every season before he got in charge of it. And in 4 years he's been in charge, there's been over 200 rule changes. It's a fucking embarrassment.
Football used to be wavy lines. Some decisions you got wrong. Yeah. Referees got wrong and they just didn't see them and stuff. Let's face it, it didn't really happen that often. Referees pretty much got things, I'd say a good 80 to 85% of the time, got things spot on. A couple of offsides went here and there that they missed. Maybe a couple of throw-ins went to the other team when it should have gone to one team. A couple of handballs and everything that might have slipped for the nets and stuff. Penalties were always contentious. But referees pretty much got it spot on and we all lived in harmony. There wasn't any goals getting disallowed 2 minutes after the fucking fact and all the rest of it. And now we just cannot enjoy anything that's happening because everything is a constant check for something or another. You can't, I said it before, you can't celebrate a goal because you're worried about, was there an offside on the lead up to it? Was there a foul from someone in the lead up to play? Did someone handball it? Like, how long ago did they handball it? Was it in the passage of play that they handballed it? If they handballed it 10 seconds ago, is it going to get disallowed? What if it was 30 seconds ago? You can't make these things into black and white. You can't compartmentalise things into black and white sections. Football's grey. It's always going to be a grey sport. Every sport's a grey sport, and every single sport seems to be using the technology really well in allowing that human interpretation and saying, you know, that happened, yeah, by the rule book it's wrong, but we can see why it happened and it wasn't of any fault of the player. Whereas in football, you've got shit like Eric Dyer getting fucking penalised for a penalty when he was
Here's a question.
Facing it.
Here's a question. Have we given VAR too much power? Like, would we be opposed? Because I like the fact that VAR can pull offsides. I've not a problem with that because offside is offside, and with the margin and the speed that some players can travel at, I'll give the linesman some credit here. It must be a fucking difficult job. It's probably got to be the most difficult job in football. I don't mind technology helping them out, and I don't mind them retrospectively looking at red cards as long as the decision's been made. Should that be the cap for VAR? It's because to me, like, it should be like we shouldn't be looking at the handballs. They shouldn't be tracking back looking for fouls. I mean, if we're gonna go deeper into VAR and rules, that fucking handball at Spurs would have never happened if the referee was competent enough to realise that was never a free kick in the first place. Joelinton threw himself at the Spurs player and got a free kick for it. Like, how has he won a free kick from that? Like, it's awful referee. We spoke about the standard referee a couple of weeks ago. It's fucking dog shit. But are they now relying on VAR to save them? Like, have we given VAR too much power?
I think we should just strip it back to us. I think VAR should do nothing but offsides.
And what about reds? I don't mind it being reds. Like, reds, because sometimes you need a second angle to look at a poor tackle.
Speaking of reds, what do we make of players elbowing people in the face on purpose and then only getting a yellow?
I said this before. I know, Danny, you agree with me. Like, 3 years, we were saying it before we started recording, didn't we? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, before VAR and stuff, I feel like that would have been a yellow. I don't think Mane did it maliciously. I don't
think he did either.
In this day and age that we're living in, where it's one or the other, it's binary, it's 1 or 0, and that's it, right?
It is with handball. It is with handball.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
We've got 1 and 0 for one rule, and then not 1 and 0 for the other, and that's where the biggest problem lies. The referees have made a decision today where they've gone, yeah, Mane hasn't swung an elbow at him. His elbow is just like he's tried. You can see that he has tried to palm him off, and he's got it wrong, and his elbow's hit Tierney. And the referees have seen that as human beings and realised it's probably not a red. I said it in the group chat. It's in between a yellow and a red. Like, if it was an orange card, if it was a sin bin, it was probably a sin bin.
Yeah, like a 5-10 minute sin bin.
Yeah, exactly. But then in the same rule book, we have these decisions where handball is handball no matter where it touches him. Like, and
so
an
elbow is a red, no matter if it's a mistake or not.
Exactly. Like, if you're gonna have a consistent rule where it's a yes or no answer, like the handball rule, have it for everything. Chalk off the goal for Chelsea to make it 3-3 because Kai Havertz handballed it. Send Mane off because he put an elbow in the face. Those two were decisions that were made on humans going against the yes or no. And that's what football is. Like, we want decisions like Mane got tonight because we know it's not a red. But if it was a yes or no system, it'd have been sent off tonight. And that goes against football.
It's one thing or another. So if you're going to say that we're allowing human interpretation for that elbow, then all right, I want human interpretation brought back for studs up challenges, because not every challenge that goes in with studs up is a red card. I'm sorry,
and I want human interpretation for handballs because Eric Dyer did not deliberately handball that fucking ball.
No, and nor did Ward.
And nor did Ward, and nor did Lindelof, and nor did Gabriel. And the rest of them as well. Like, you can go on. It's awful.
It's just fucking boring, isn't it?
Look what we're talking about again. We've had 2 weekends in a row where we've had ridiculous amounts of goals scored. And we're talking again about the referee, not the referees. I don't like blaming the refs because I think the refs are being hung out to dry here at this point. They're being
rules, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's not their fault. Yeah, the refereeing is poor, but what we're talking about and what we're discussing is not the refs' fault. It's the rule book and what they have to do as a job. But it's all we're talking about. We're talking about decisions rather than talking about Leicester banging in 5 goals last weekend, so scoring 43 goals in a weekend. We should be talking about that. We shouldn't be talking about handballs.
Well, we could always just round it off nicely by talking about how well Liverpool did tonight, and it was a good result for them, wasn't it? Arsenal,
is it 2-1, is it?
Yeah, 3-1.
Oh, 3-1.
Jota came on and scored, yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
Look, good transfer for them, isn't it?
They're doing well.
So.
Dale's face is the same as mine. I'm not pulling a face because of fucking Liverpool winning. I'm pulling a face because I've just had a fucking shocker with the fantasy football this week.
Yeah.
I was saved by Aston Villa tonight. I had
Who did you have?
I had Martinez in net and Mings, who scored, didn't he?
Yeah.
What a judge! What a judge! Eh?
Well, we'll give some credit to the obviously the table hasn't updated so far, but the high flyers in the fantasy football in our league. Tom Walker is currently ahead on 188 points. And we're doing this before. Dale second.
Well done, Dale.
Absolutely smashing it.
Nice to know what you can do when you go to the lakes, eh?
In a five-side's favourite football name, Inter your Nan, Tyler Rozier in third. And Andy Fairclough in fourth. And then in fifth,
can you please
the man that's not bothered, Joshua Murphy.
Well, can you just tell me
that I forced to make a fantasy football team, and he's sat in fifth.
Not talked about it at all to anybody in work. Promise. Promise. Can we just say Andy Fairclough's team name for number 4 as well?
Oh yeah, go on.
You got it.
Bindi and Bisky.
Bindi and Bisky. It's Brian Badonde, isn't it?
Yeah.
Classic.
I'm lost on that
I
reference.
saw it the first week and I was like, go on, Andy. Good lad.
Good lad.
I'm lost on that reference.
Bindi and Bisky.
Somebody tweet some Brian Badonde on that Twitter account tonight.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to save it top 4, Andy. And tweet a fucking gif.
Yeah, no, fair play to all the boys in the Fantasy Football League. Lee is currently pulling up the bottom.
He's doing poor.
He's had a stinker. I'm not that far. I'm on 13th. Colin's your 10th.
Danny, you've actually had quite a bad week.
I've had a stinking week, mate. It's been. I took a risk and captained Werner because I thought he was going to do it against anyone. He'd do it against West Brom. He didn't. He's getting sold. He's not done anything.
Mate, I captained Click in what was the most boring, bloody Yorkshire derby that's ever existed, mate.
I had Bamford. Nice one.
Of course you fucking did.
Not to rub it in. I've just had a bit of a beaut.
Bunch of twats, honestly. Dale ran away with ours last year as well. He's going to do the same. Well, Dale's our last hope of not costing us money.
Yeah.
Go on, Dale. Lad.
No pressure.
Go on, Dale. We haven't got a sponsor yet. We ain't got the money to be paying out winners.
I'm still shocked that we've not been sponsored by Carlin after week 1.
I think if anyone's ever going to sponsor us, they're probably on the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Carlin, it's all you've got left.
Somewhere in a meeting room is a bunch of important people at Carlsberg who were talking about that episode and going, do you hear that someone doesn't think that we're the worst beer in the world?
Throw money at them now.
Oh, especially that export crap.